Batman, the Cat and the Claw. Chapter 1. The rain poured down on Gotham City, amplifying the ever-present gloom that clung to the aging architecture like a damp cloak. In the neglected East End, a shivering homeless man took shelter in a crumbling alleyway as lightning split the night sky. The brief flash of light revealed a shadowy figure perched atop the adjacent building, cape billowing behind him. Batman's gaze swept the streets below, searching for any signs of criminal activity. It was a quiet night, but he knew that could change at any moment in Gotham. The city bred madness, like a fetid petri dish. The vile elements would emerge from the darkness soon enough. For now, the Dark Knight kept his vigil alone with the storm as his only companion. Fatigue tugged at the edge of Batman's mind. He had been on patrol for over 8 hours now, but the thought of returning to the manor, to an empty bed, turned his stomach. Out here, with the wind and rain lashing his face, he could focus on his mission, his never-ending war on crime. At home, his darkest memories and innermost pain crept in, the ghosts of his past that not even the cave's deepest shadows could hide. A crack of thunder jolted Batman from his brooding. He turned east, narrowing his eyes at the murky horizon, where a red glow now punctured the night. An explosion, and a large one at that. The Dark Knight fired his grapnel, swinging rapidly through the storm towards thick plumes of smoke belching above the skyline. His cape transitioned to a glider configuration, letting him soar between high-rises as police sirens echoed through the concrete canyons. By the time Batman descended upon the devastated block, first responders were already battling flames that erupted from the hollowed remnants of a 5-story office building. James Gordon stood nearby, his trench coat soaked and face weary as he coordinated efforts. "What happened, Jim?" Batman rasped, materializing from swirling ash beside the police commissioner. Gordon shook his head. Gas line rupture was the initial assessment, but the blast radius. He trailed off, coughing into his shoulder as the acrid air stung his throat. This was intentional. Batman's gaze bored into the ruined structure, analyzing details. His enhanced lenses displayed trajectories, highlighted debris dispersal patterns, and scanned chemical signatures, all cross-referenced with the Batcomputer's forensics database. Gordon wiped raindrops from his glasses. "We haven't found any bodies yet. The area was mostly commercial. Just a few security night staff that managed to escape their collapsed lobby. They'll consider themselves lucky. If people were the target, things would have been much worse." This was meant as a message. Batman's voice was grim. He pivoted, shoulders flaring beneath the scalloped cape as he stalked towards the Batmobile. "Where are you going?" Gordon called after the retreating vigilante. "To find out who sent it." The canopy sealed shut as the jet engine roared to life and the sleek vehicle tore into the rainy night. Chapter 2. Alfred Pennyworth straightened, allowing his aching back a brief respite after spending the last hour scrubbing soot residue from Batman's graphite scale mail armor. Not for the first time, he lamented that Master Bruce seemed incapable of returning from patrol with his equipment intact. Heavy footfalls echoed off the cave walls, preceded by the squeaking of a dozen bats roused from their sleep. "Decided to continue patrolling, sir?" Alfred asked dryly, turning toward the approaching figure. Batman's mouth was fixed in a hard line as he stalked past the aging butler. This detonation wasn't just a random attack, it was a demonstration. He sat at the Cray terminal, fingers dancing across holographic keys. Alfred arched an eyebrow as coding flowed across the screens. "Of what exactly?" power. Whoever was behind that explosion could have leveled city blocks, taken hundreds of lives if they desired. Diagrams of the blast site, laced with thermal and radiation analysis, began appearing. They're showing me what they're capable of, should I fail to protect Gotham. Rather dramatic, if I may say so, Alfred commented. When Batman remained silent, his fingers still frantically parsing data streams, the butler placed a hand gently on his shoulder. Sir, you cannot blame yourself for the deeds of madmen. Your crusade can only do so much to stem the tides of. It's not enough. Bruce suddenly exploded, shoving back the chair as he leapt to his feet. Alfred recoiled involuntarily from the fierce outburst. Slowly, Bruce seemed to regain a measure of composure, his shoulders slumping beneath the black cape. I cannot let this city fall into chaos, but each day the crime worsens, the corruption spreads. His voice was haunted. Gotham needs you, Master Bruce, Alfred said softly. Bruce turned away, letting the shadows conceal his face. And I need to stop this new threat before more innocent lives are lost. Chapter 3. Sunlight glinted off crystalline skyscrapers in downtown Gotham, banishing the prior night's gloom as the city woke to a new day. From the soaring pinnacle of Wayne Tower, Bruce Wayne gazed out at building tops with tired eyes, pondering his next move. Last night's analysis had troubling implications. The chemical residues and heat patterns were consistent with advanced explosives, suggesting a sophisticated orchestrator. And the office building's location, adjacent to the financial district and various government bureaus, indicated the attack was strategically targeted for maximum impact without direct loss of life. Whoever was behind this was smart, organized, and willing to unleash hell on Gotham for their agenda. Bruce suspected eco-terrorists, a rogue foreign agent, or perhaps a new supervillain eager to mark their territory. Regardless, he needed to stop them before the violence escalated. Bruce turned as the elevator doors opened to admit Lucius Fox. Sorry I'm late. Traffic is backed up across the bridge from that nasty business last night. The elderly CEO joined Bruce, gazing out the window. Any leads on who was behind the attack? Bruce asked, keeping his tone neutral. Lucius shook his head. Authorities are keeping it close for now, but an explosion that size had to leave evidence. I know Gordon has his best on it, and... He gave Bruce a meaningful look. Other concerned parties. Bruce gave a thin smile. I'm sure Batman is looking into it as we speak. I hope he finds whoever is responsible soon. Our city has seen far too much pain lately as it is. But that's not why I asked you here. Lucius handed Bruce a tablet displaying an energy grid analysis. This plot allocation for the new Wayne Enterprises power plant needs your approval. Demand projection indicates we'll need to double capacity. As Lucius reviewed the proposal, Bruce felt part of his mind detach, turning back to the mystery assailant. He was accustomed to juggling identities by now, both Bruce Wayne and the Batman, focusing their unique resources toward a goal. Whoever this new terrorist was, they would slip up eventually. And when they did, the Batman would be there, waiting to drag them into the light. Chapter 4. Clouds drifted across the waning moon, casting ephemeral shadows over Gotham City Museum of Art's neoclassical facade. Perched atop the copper dome, Catwoman tracked security patrols below, eager for the right moment to begin her heist. This latest exhibition of Egyptian antiquities had one piece in particular that called to the cat burglar. A jade cat statuette from the tomb of Pharaoh Seti I. Selina Kyle couldn't resist its allure, even if the museum's new laser grid made acquisition riskier than usual. Sensing her opening, Catwoman fired a grappling line and descended silently onto the roof. She approached an ornate skylight and carefully circumvented the pressure alarm beneath its frame. As she worked on the lock with an electric pick, her earpiece crackled. "I know you're there, Selena. Stand down, now." The harsh baritone rasp made Catwoman tense. She turned to see the bat's shadow emerge across the roof. "You're no fun anymore." She gave an exaggerated pout before blowing him a kiss. "I'll just take a rain check on playtime for now, handsome." With lightning reflexes, she drew a compact pistol from her hip and fired it skyward. The high-density polyurethane foam round splattered across the skylight. As the quickly expanding foam set the alarm sensors blaring, Catwoman fired a grapple line and leapt from the museum's roof, swinging into the night. Landing deftly atop a parked semi-truck, Catwoman glanced back to see the Bat still watching from his perch. She had hoped the diversion would cover her escape, knowing there was no outrunning the Dark Knight's driving abilities on rooftop alone. Instead, he made no move to follow or engage. Very strange. As Catwoman made her way north across the city, she overheard police dispatch chatter about a suspicious vehicle spotted crossing into Gotham's Otisburg region. Interest piqued, she adjusted course and soon came upon what appeared to be a delivery truck idling by an old sorting warehouse. Two armed thugs stood lookout on the street corner. "Amateurs," Catwoman muttered under her breath. Whatever shady deal was taking place here, she wanted no part of it. This neighborhood was enough of a litter box already without guys like that stinking it up further. As she turned to leave, an explosion suddenly rocked the warehouse, a fireball rolling up from the back lot. The thugs cursed loudly, scrambling for cover against debris raining down from the midnight blast. Catwoman's lips curled into a grin beneath her goggled mask. If someone was muscling into the Gotham underground with explosives and firepower, that could explain why Bats was off his game tonight. And it might present an opportunity for some fun profit-sharing if she played her cards right. Chapter 5. Slitted eyes watched thermal camera feeds from the warehouse inferno. Another controlled blast successfully delivered as intended. Now the real games could begin. "Maybe ease up a few blocks, boss. That's the second cookhouse this week." The henchman's nervous plea was cut short as a gloved fist slammed down. "Silence, unless you wish to volunteer for the next demonstration." The words came out through an electronic filter, masking any traces of identity. Standing slowly, the boiler suit-clad figure inspected the custom Semtex charges lining the workbenches, their sequenced detonators ready for synchronization. Everything needed to tear Gotham apart, piece by piece. Soon the Batman would realize what he was up against. A mind not shackled by morals. An iron will that would see this fetid city purged by fire. For too long the corrupt had festered, spreading their disease unchecked. Now true justice would be wrought. The hand clenched into a fist. Batman was just a man after all, and every man had a breaking point. It was time the Dark Knight learned that even his precious Gotham was not beyond salvation. The riots would come first, mobs enraged by the growing devastation. Then, when infrastructure collapsed and martial law took effect, the people would demand a new order to restore peace. There could be no compromise with the entrenched decay. The entire system needed rebooting. An act of God was required. Lacking such divine retribution, manufactured calamity would suffice. None of this was personal, of course. Batman had principles, misguided as they were. His methods simply did not go far enough to excise the root of Gotham's malignant failings. To truly reset the scales, the Bat would have to perish with the rest of the old order. The hidden gaze turned back to the monitors. Thermal signatures indicated numerous newly arrived fire and police vehicles clustering around the blaze, like antibodies responding to an infection. Pointless, when the true disease lay so much deeper. Soon they would all come to understand. The dawn of Gotham's rebirth approached, and a new era would rise from the ashes. Chapter 6. Jim Gordon winced, rubbing at the headache pulsing behind tired eyes as the unrelenting police band chatter filled his office. It had been a long week trying to manage backlash from the escalating bomb blasts and social unrest incited by this mysterious terrorist. He desperately needed a break, or at least a good cup of coffee, but the latest development dashed any hopes of a reprieve. An envelope addressed directly to the GCPD commissioner in shaky red lettering lay on his desk, delivered an hour ago by a skittish clerk. Against his better judgment, Gordon carefully opened the parcel and shook out the contents: a plain cassette tape and a glossy 8x10 photograph. Turning the photograph over, Gordon's throat went dry. It showed the mangled face of Harvey Bullock, Gordon's longtime friend and detective sergeant. Dried blood caked Bullock's swollen features. One eye was sealed shut, and his lower lip was split open, oozing a trail of crimson down his battered jawline. Gordon experienced a moment of nausea before he noticed a slim digital recorder lying near the detective's upturned hand. Shakily, Gordon walked over to the cassette player on his file cabinet and inserted the tape. Static crackled from the speakers before an eerily modulated voice emerged. "Commissioner Gordon, your lackey has just experienced but a small dose of the reckoning in store if your corrupt regime continues turning a blind eye. Gotham's renewal requires the old cancer be carved out, no matter how deep the roots or painful the incisions. Cease your interference immediately and bow before the cleansing flames, or be burned away with the rest of this diseased establishment." The tape ended with a sharp click. Gordon's fingers dug into the desk, steadying himself. This was no mere criminal making threats and demands this terrorist would not stop until they had razed Gotham to ashes. A thunder of boots and voices erupted outside, preceding Bullock bursting through the office door, clutching a napkin to his bloodied face. "Commish, we just got ping that sicko's location." Blimp surveillance picked up a signal flash from somewhere downtown. Gordon felt his adrenaline surge. "Call tactical teams to converge on that location and surround it covertly. Nobody makes a move until Batman arrives." This would end tonight. Chapter 7. Perched atop the central Gothic spire of Carmine Falcone Hall, Batman's cape billowed like a shadowy pennant in the cold night wind. His binocular lenses reflected the floodlit facade of City Hall and municipal offices across the street, still bustling with police and officials at this late hour. After Gordon had relayed the intercepted message from their terrorist adversary, now confirmed to be a woman from voice pattern analysis, Batman tasked the Bat computer to continuously scan surveillance feeds throughout Gotham for clues. The threatening video sent to Gordon had to originate somewhere, and Batman suspected the signal flash pinpointed by blimp observation was timed to coincide with the video upload. Finally, an AI-assisted search revealed footage of an unmarked van parked at Gotham Square earlier that matched vehicle movement patterns, coinciding with the signal flash. The van was gone, but Batman tracked its license plate to an alias rental listing. More importantly, Chemical analysis indicated traces of RDX plastic explosive and PETN detonator cord residue on the van's rear wheel well. Just the forensic link he needed. Batman glided from the rooftop, firing a grapple-line to slingshot through downtown. Following the trail, he soon arrived at a deserted office block, slated for demolition on the industrial Wild Street wharf. Several tactical police teams already had the building quietly surrounded. Landing silently amidst stacked crates, Batman slipped through the rear access door Gordon had left unlocked. He stalked down the moldy hallways, senses alert for any sound or shift in air currents. His cowl's pathogen filters strained against the overpowering tang of mildew and rat droppings. Floor by floor, he methodically cleared darkened rooms and maintenance stairwells, finding nothing. According to building records, there was a large machine depot in the sub-basement used for parts storage. Descending the metal steps cautiously, Batman entered the vast warehouse space. It was pitch black, with even his night vision unable to pierce the gloom. Reaching into his belt, Batman retrieved a gadget and shook it briskly. The chemiluminescent capsule glowed an eerie green, casting jagged shadows as he surveyed the expanse. Aside from massive mechanical presses and tractor struts, the space appeared lifeless. He was about to contact Gordon when a phone on the floor suddenly rang, the shrill tone echoing. Chapter 8. Good evening, Batman. The electronically modulated voice was unmistakable, dripping with malice even through the filter. Batman glanced around, but saw no one as the speaker continued. I'm glad you followed the trail of breadcrumbs. Considering the labyrinth that is your psyche, I feared they might lead you astray, but no matter, we come to the heart of things now. Batman paused by a workbench along the warehouse wall. Tools, wiring, and blocks of plastic explosive were spread out a bomb maker's lab. His eyes narrowed. If you think a trap will stop me, you're mistaken. The voice chuckled, sending a cold ripple along Batman's spine. Oh, I'm well aware of your talents, Dark Knight. This is no trap, simply a demonstration of the futility in resisting change. There was a sharp click on the line before muffled booms resonated, followed by distant screams audible through the phone. Batman tensed. What have you done? He growled. Merely opened the public's eyes. 3 municipal buildings across Gotham have received my custom messages in the last 60 seconds. The district courthouse, city records office, and police evidence lockup, specifically. I do hope no one was working late filing papers. The voice dripped with mock sympathy. Batman slammed the phone down and sprinted upstairs, bursting from an exterior fire door. He could now see the orange glows rising across Gotham's skyline as reported locations erupted in flame. Gordon, multiple targets just hit across the city, he shouted over comms. Hit all units deployed immediately to aid evacuation and establish perimeters. Copy that. Gordon's voice answered between bursts of dispatcher orders. Any civilians in those areas are sitting ducks. If this psychopath triggers more bombs remotely, we need to find out how she's detonating these. Batman raced to the Batmobile, rockets blasting the vehicle forward through empty streets. His mind ran through the variables. This terrorist had strategically distracted authorities by leaking the van location, only to hit more valuable infrastructure targets. Rather than a benefit, anticipating her strategy had made Batman an unwitting pawn in her hands. That couldn't happen again. As he weaved between fire trucks toward the courthouse blaze, an incoming communication flashed across his console, an open voice channel. Such a shame about the justice system burning. Wherever shall the good citizens of Gotham turn now? The modulate voice of the terrorist echoed from the speakers. Batman's gaze hardened. If she wanted to crow, he would feed that ego. Your tactics only undermine the rule of law further, unlike true justice, he answered coldly. Her chilling laugh echoed through the car. And blindness undermines vision. Worry not, dark night, I shall open all eyes soon to the light. The channel closed, leaving Batman racing towards billowing flames and new questions. Chapter 9. Here is the continuation. The police barricades did little to hold back the crush of bystanders and media crowded before the Gotham courthouse ruins. Commissioner Gordon stood at the smoldering barricade line, fielding the same unanswerable questions shouted by reporters. What assurances can you give that the GCPD has the resources to protect this city? Why have no suspects been announced yet? How long until Gotham descends into total anarchy? Gordon did his best to remain calm and professional, but the lack of progress was taking its toll. They still had no solid leads on the terrorist's identity or motives, beyond her repeated talk of cleansing Gotham. He needed an edge, some way to anticipate her next attack. As the sky lightened to a gloomy dawn, Gordon's phone buzzed with a coded message from his only reliable source on this mystery. Batman was incoming. Gordon slipped away from the cameras and cordoned disaster zone to an empty alley. Moments later, a dark shape descended from the rooftops. Please tell me you found something, Gordon said without preamble. Batman's voice was grim. I've been over the bombing sites with Oracle satellite scans and chemical detectors. The devices matched the precursor residue from the initial warehouse blast. So we're definitely dealing with the same perpetrator. Gordon shook his head wearily. Anything on how she's detonating them? The electron paths point to radio transceivers, most likely triggered by coded broadcast, but the real concern is the payload. Batman held up a charged circuit board in an evidence bag. These are military-grade explosives, Gordon, not the kind sold on corner drug rings or smuggled across borders. Gordon frowned. You think we have a domestic terrorist cell supplying her? It's possible, though her rhetoric doesn't align with known groups. She believes she's freeing Gotham somehow, creating order from chaos. Batman's jaw clenched. This is an ideologue on a mission, and she won't stop until the whole city burns. So how do we get ahead of her? Gordon asked pointedly. Batman turned, cloak rippling. By learning her endgame, this goes beyond destruction. She wants to reshape Gotham. I need to find out how before it's too late. With a rush of air, he fired a jump line and vanished over the rooftops. Gordon watched him disappear into the polluted haze. Then, squaring his shoulders, the commissioner walked back to manage the growing crowds and his own mounting dread. Chapter 10. Perched on her fire escape, Selina Kyle finished licking her plate clean and gazed up at the sound of fluttering wings. A sleek black raven landed on the railing, cocking its head to peer at her with ink-drop eyes. Don't suppose you're here to deliver upgraded cable? Selina smiled wryly. The raven hopped onto her leather glove when extended and offered its leg. A small slip of paper was rolled within the message capsule. Selina unfurled it to reveal finely inked handwriting. Rooftop. 11 p.m. B. Some date, Selina muttered, though she felt a tingle of excitement. Slipping inside to her bedroom, she quickly shimmied into her catsuit and checked her bullwhip coiled at the hip. Dabbing whisker-violet lipstick across her mouth, she slipped on the night vision goggles and headed out. Selena reached her own building's roof-access stairwell when a flicker of movement made her freeze. A familiar shape detached from the air conditioning unit's shadows. "Evening, handsome, I got your note." She smiled coyly. Batman's expression remained stoic. "I don't have time for games, Selena. What do you know about the terrorist bombings?" His gravelly tone was all business. Catwoman leaned against the rusty doorframe. "I might have some leads, but my insights don't come free, Batman. Not with this maniac disrupting the status quo. Bad for business, you know." She could almost hear the Dark Knight's teeth grind in frustration. Finally, he responded gruffly, "If your information helps stop this, I'll erase your recent museum burglary attempt from Gordon's active caseload." Selena feigned shock. "Why, Batman, I never." She giggled at his deepening scowl. "Oh, very well. Its ideal word is some new player muscled into Gotham's underground networks supplying explosives and contraband. Started distributing high-grade ordnance to the gangs weeks back." "Do you have a name?" Batman pressed. "Not yet, but this hidden benefactor is cozying up to all the major powers, Marinus, Falcons, you name it. I can keep digging, but it'll cost you." She smiled innocently. Batman's eyes narrowed, but he simply nodded. "Your payment will come after this threat is ended. Let's keep exchanges discreet until then." Without another word, he fired a jump line and vanished over the edge, leaving Selena's heart racing. Chapter 11. James Gordon pressed the ice pack to his throbbing temple. The ringing in his ears from the explosion had finally died down, though the courtyard of Gotham's Central Hospital continued spinning if he sat up too quickly. Gordon had no time for a concussion, though, not with lives depending on him. The assault had come without warning. Gordon was hosting a press conference to reassure citizens of the GCPD's progress after last night's bombing, when a delivery van suddenly accelerated towards police barricades. Before Gordon could react, the vehicle erupted in a massive fireball, flipping police cruisers and sending bodies flying. Gordon had been fortunate a toppled obelisk pillar shielded him from the blast's full effect. But not everyone was so lucky. The death toll climbed hourly as more bodies were pulled from the rubble. All Gordon could see each time he closed his eyes was the flash of scorching white. Medics had forced him to sit, take oxygen, and get checked for injuries until he threatened to arrest the entire staff. There was too much to be done. But when he tried to rise, firm hands grasped Gordon's shoulders. "Jim, you need to rest. That's an order." Gordon blinked up through hazy vision to see the scarred visage of Harvey Bullock looking down at him with uncharacteristic concern. Gordon started to protest, but Harvey cut him off. "Not this time, Jim. You took a hard knock, and we need you sharp. I can deputize Montoya and handle ops coordination, but only if you let the damn docs look you over." Gordon wanted to argue, but knew Harvey was right. With a reluctant sigh, he leaned back and let the medic resume examination. "Fine, but have Montoya establish protected emergency lines. This terrorist cut us off from each other before the attack. We can't let communications be disrupted again." Harvey nodded. "Will do. I'll set up encrypted channels between TAC teams and dispatch. We'll find who's behind this, Jim." He gripped Gordon's shoulder firmly before leaving to fulfill his orders. Despite the concussion, Gordon's mind continued churning with questions. Where had their surveillance failed? What drove this level of blind ruthlessness? Turning his eyes to the column of black smoke still rising above the hospital, Gordon silently vowed whoever they were facing would be brought down, no matter the cost. Chapter 12. Batman crouched atop a tower crane, overlooking what remained of Gotham Central Hospital's East Wing. Billowing smoke stung his eyes, even behind the whiteout lenses. The scope of devastation was staggering. His encrypted comm link chirped. "Talk to me, Alfred. Were you able to trace the signal?" The butler's voice responded promptly. "Indeed, sir, by pinging the GCPD communication nodes, I managed to isolate the originating signal jam. Quite sophisticated, really, it." "The location, Alfred," Batman cut in tersely. "Yes, of course, the signal appears to have been transmitted from a warehouse in Gotham's fashion district. Sending the coordinates now." "Good. Keep monitoring for any activity there. It seems our enemy has upgraded their arsenal." Batman grappled away, using his memory cloth cape to glide between buildings. Whoever this terrorist was, their attacks were increasing in precision and scale at an alarming rate. Batman needed to find the source supplying their resources before Gotham was left in ashes. The industrial complex was silent when Batman arrived, having already plotted an infiltration approach avoiding street cameras. He slipped inside via an access vent, the warehouse's dark aside from sparse security lighting. Crawling through the ducts, Batman scanned for any guards or tripwires. Only automated systems seemed active. Finding a secluded office, Batman hacked into the compound's network. No incriminating communications appeared at first glance, but a concealed partition gave him pause. After decoding the firewalls, Batman opened the hidden files. What he saw made his blood run cold. Schematics for high-yield explosive devices. Maps of Gotham infrastructure labeled with blast radii. And video surveillance of the hospital courtyard. This was the hub coordinating the attacks. With growing unease, Batman deeped of the servers. Cache logs indicated a signal had originated here that morning, directed through the GCPD network to override communications, right before the hospital bombing. There was no doubt now. Batman quickly copied the cache evidence to transmit to Gordon later. He hesitated before opening a command prompt. If he disabled the warehouse servers, it would slow the terrorists down, but they would immediately know he had found this location. The wiser course was to leave no trace of his access for now. Sitting back, Batman mulled options. He needed more time to track who controlled this facility and where the explosives were being stockpiled. The GCPD could raid the warehouse, but most of the physical evidence would probably be gone. The solution dawned on Batman. He could anonymously leak the location, appearing as an unrelated tip called in by a civilian. Gordon would be forced to send a full team to investigate. And in the confusion, Batman could continue discreetly narrowing down the terrorists' identity through their digital footprint and money trails. Batman disliked misleading Gordon, but he reassured himself it was necessary for the greater good. Rising from the desk, he disappeared silently back into the ducts, mind racing with the next phase of his plan. Chapter 13. Alfred lowered the silver tray laden with a bone china tea set and selection of finger sandwiches. "Will you at least attempt to eat something before you pass out at the console again, sir?" Bruce didn't look up from the bank of screens displaying streams of data. "I'm fine, thank you, Alfred." The butler gave an exasperated sigh. "Sir, you have been down here for 36 hours straight since that warehouse raid, I must insist." "I said I'm fine." Bruce snapped harshly. Alfred fell silent, lowering his eyes. Bruce's shoulders slumped. I apologize for the tone, old friend, but I cannot slow down, not when lives hang in the balance, please. Just leave the tea. Alfred nodded and quietly ascended the cave steps. Alone again, Bruce reached for the mug with a slightly unsteady hand. The various camera feeds he had tapped into after the warehouse bust had yielded unsatisfying results. The terrorist was adept at covering their digital tracks, but Bruce had detected money funneled through offshore accounts that might be the weak link. One wire transfer connected to a holding company linked to Roman Sionis, known Gotham businessman and suspected organized crime financier. If Sionis was involved, Bruce theorized he could trace physical shipments of resources from Sionis's steel mill holdings throughout Gotham's decayed industrial sector. A solvable supply chain issue if he gathered enough data. Bruce opened a command prompt on the back computer. After bypassing several network firewalls, he gained access to the GCPD satellite servers. He quickly set a recursive script to pull down raw footage streams from camera orbits passing over the city, funneled through a cloning server to obscure his intrusion. The data influx strained even the Craze processors, but geographic coverage expanded rapidly. Now Bruce could start predictive analysis, establishing known supply routes and likely handoff points between Sionis's buildings. He merged in thermal imaging, radiation scans, and microscopic particle detection grids, letting the Cray churn through petabytes seeking patterns. There, a recurring truck movement between the steel mill and warehouse depot picked up on particle scans. Cross-referencing with spectral imaging confirmed chemical compounds found at the initial blast sites present in the shipments. He was closing in. Next, Bruce tapped into the Gotham Utility Grid's campus wireless network, bypassing the firewalls to access their citywide network of roof cameras meant for telemetry analysis. Now he could track the suspect truck from overhead as it made deliveries, straight to the terrorist's next target. Chapter 14. Headlines scrolled endlessly on the screens mounted along Gotham Square, each station playing the same news on repeat. Terror in Gotham, vigilante Batman prime suspect. Speculation had run rampant after the bombing 3 days prior of New Millennium Labs, a biotech firm contracted with the city for epidemiology research. The attack left 2 dead and a dozen injured when the truck detonated on a busy downtown avenue. This time, however, traffic cameras caught sight of the distinctive Batmobile fleeing the scene just minutes prior to the explosion. For a populace already on edge from the terrorists' campaign, seeing their dark vigilante now potentially implicated was provoking outrage. In vain, Commissioner Gordon defended Batman's character at a heated press conference, urging patience until an investigation was complete. Few seemed willing to exercise such restraint. On the steps of City Hall, various politicians and officials gave interviews decrying how this latest act of destruction proved Batman's dangerous extremism. Among the most vocal critics was newly elected Mayor Oswald Cobblepot, who condemned the twisted vigilante justice threatening families. If our own police force can't bring Batman to justice for his own crimes, then my administration will have no choice but to seek federal assistance. The safety of Gotham's citizens must come first. Similar rhetoric continued as demands mounted for Batman to turn himself in. Perched on a rooftop gargoyle above the growing crowds, Bruce Wayne listened grimly as his alter ego was made the villain. Bruce knew someone had manipulated events and perception expertly. The raw satellite footage he pulled clearly showed the truck's route never passed near his location that day. And, during his stealth investigation, Bruce had seen bank transfers indicating Cobblepot received hefty anonymous campaign donations just before these new attacks began. But exposing that truth would require revealing himself as Batman. For now, Bruce had no choice but to further fade into the shadows, continuing the hunt alone while Gordon vainly pushed back against the tearing social fabric. The city was turning against Batman, but Gotham still needed him more than ever. Bruce grappled away as night fell and the first flickers of bats signaled it was time. Perception could be deceiving, and so far the real enemy had stayed one step ahead. But pursuing the truth was Batman's purpose. And soon, this terrace would be dragged into the full light. Chapter 15. Rain pattered softly across the slate roof as Batman surveyed the exterior of the Sienna steel mill. Perched atop a water tower, his cape wrapped tight against the chill damp, lenses scanning for any guards patrolling the chain-link fence surrounding the abandoned site. Thermal imaging showed a surprising lack of activity within the warehouses either, but Bruce knew that was surely a facade. The chemical shipments he traced here were too regular, even continuing after the other supply hub raid. And hacked emails indicated Sionis was paying contractors for some undisclosed construction. Whatever the terrorist had been building under the mill, it was time to tear open her nest. Batman dove, gliding to land silently atop a tractor trailer near the rear cargo entrance. The gate's lock disengaged quickly to his decryption device. Moving inside, Batman switched vision modes as he navigated the inky blackness. Passing rusted foundry equipment, he descended factory stairwells until detecting light ahead. Pausing at the doorway, Batman observed a large basement chamber filled with crates, fuel barrels, and enough explosive charges to level city blocks. His eyes narrowed. Bingo. Before Batman could withdraw to plan his sabotage, a modulated voice called out, "We've been expecting you, Dark Knight." Goons wielding assault rifles emerged from the stacks as a black-clad figure approached. Their bodysuit incorporated some form of adaptive camouflage, blending seamlessly with the background. Smart armor could explain how the terrorist eluded surveillance. Batman stepped fully into the room, palms open. "I don't wish to fight, but this ends now," he growled. The modulated chuckle sent that familiar chill through Batman. "Oh, I very much doubt that." The terrorist nodded, and her minions opened fire. Batman dove, hurling flash pellets toward their muzzle flares. The goons shouted, blinded as Batman disarmed them with nerve strikes. He then fired a cryogenic grenade at the terrorist leader's feet, but the foam washed harmlessly over her armor's angled plates. Impressive, but insufficient. The distorted voice echoed around Batman as he suddenly convulsed, electricity arcing across his armor from some hidden emitter. The spasms intensified until his vision went white. When Batman regained awareness, he was being dragged down a corridor by the goons, his limbs sluggish and unresponsive. This sadist had planned well, but the fight was not over yet. Batman just needed an opening. Chapter 16. The terrorist leader strode ahead into a control room lined with monitors as Batman was forced into a restraint chair and locked down. He tested the metal bands discreetly, but they refused to budge as techs attached biometric sensors to his cowl and body armor. "Comfortable, Dark Knight, the paralysis should wear off shortly. We wouldn't want you to miss the demonstration." The modulated voice dripped with anticipation as cameras trained on Batman from all angles. He kept his voice low and steady. "Your fight is with me. The people of Gotham are innocent." "Innocent?" The terrorist laughed harshly, the sound distorted as always. There are no innocents in Gotham, merely degrees of corruption. One gloved hand reached up, unclasping the electronic voice modifier at the neck. Batman watched warily as the terrorist removed their face-obscuring mask, revealing cold emerald eyes and auburn hair tied tightly back. The harsh fluorescent light only amplified the glint of fanaticism in the woman's gaze. My name is Christina Alexandra, daughter of this fetid city. I was born into squalor, abused by authorities. But no more, now I possess the power to remake Gotham as it should be. Alexandra turned to the monitors, splitting camera views with chemical analysis and maps overlaid with blast radii. You claim to fight for justice, yet even you cannot see how diseased this city has become. I will cleanse the corruption, burning away the rotten flesh, so the heart of Gotham can beat pure again. Batman tested his limbs as feeling gradually returned. Your methods only breed more violence. There's always another way. There is not. Alexandra slammed a fist down, eyes blazing. I tried for years appealing to reason, the law. It gains nothing while evil festers. Now force answers force. She turned back to the monitors with an eerie calm. Watch closely, Batman. Witness the dawn of Gotham's new era. Alexandra's finger moved toward the detonator switch as Batman strained against the chair bonds with all his might. He realized trying to convince this fanatic of anything was fruitless. All his deductions and planning had failed to predict how unhinged her psyche truly was. He had sorely underestimated the opponent. But Batman could still act, and he refused to let this mad bomber win. Chapter 17. Tires screamed in protest against rain-slick streets as the Batmobile careened through Gotham's warehouse district. In one hand, Batman tightly clutched a transparent evidence bag holding the air filtration cartridge he had managed to eject from his cowl. The contained microfibers should be enough for Gordon's team to identify Alexandra by DNA, if they could reach her lair in time. Batman had escaped the restraints and incapacitated Alexandra's goons as she triggered the detonation sequence. But the terrorist herself had slipped away in the chaos, her body armor camouflaging seamlessly into shadows. Now it was a race against Armageddon. The crazed projection map guided Batman to what appeared to be an abandoned steel refinery. He skidded the Batmobile to a halt outside the perimeter fence and leapt out, not waiting for the canopy to fully retract. Sprinting across the yard, each step sodden from the relentless downpour, Batman reached a loading dock and wrenched open the rusted door. Inside, the cavernous factory space was lit only by the eerie glow of chemical tanks and control panels. Creeping forward, Batman spotted a figure entering commands at a central terminal. Alexandra. Drawing a pair of batarangs from his belt, Batman crept up behind the catwalk where she stood. But some instinct made Alexandra turn, drawing her own sidearm with lightning reflexes. Before either could react, a whistling shape sailed out of the darkness, knocking the gun from Alexandra's grip. Now, let's not get too trigger-happy. The familiar teasing voice echoed through the chamber as Catwoman sauntered into a pool of halogen light, coiled whip in hand. Alexandra reached for another weapon, but froze when Batman pressed a batarang to her spine. It's over. Disarm the detonator now, he commanded. Alexandra slowly raised her hands. Never. Better the entire city fall than compromise. Batman seized her arm, ready to force compliance when Selena called out. Wait. Her green eyes met Batman's whiteout lenses evenly. "You told me there's always another way, so find it, and prove you really are better than the monsters in this town." Batman felt paralyzed, Alexandra's rapid pulse beneath his grip. Rarely had he been so tempted to break his moral code. But Selina was right, he would not sink to this terrorist's level, no matter the stakes. With a growl, Batman released Alexandra and stepped back. "Your crusade ends here, but it's not my place to judge your misguided sins." He turned away, heading toward the exit. "The courts will decide your fate now." He had only made it a few feet when Alexandra gave a blood-chilling laugh. "Fool, you should have killed me when you had the chance." Batman whirled to see her slap a detonator switch. Distant rumbles grew until the ground shook, nearly knocking him off his feet. It was too late, the bombs had been triggered. All of Gotham would pay the price now for his mercy. Chapter 18. Smoke plumes mushroomed up across the Gotham skyline as explosions rocked buildings, bridges, and tunnels throughout the city. Fires raged uncontrolled, the sky glowing red in their reflected light. Sirens and car alarms blended into a cacophony of panic. Batman rushed to the Batmobile, mind racing. He had failed. Alexandra's bombs were sequentially going off like a series of volcanic eruptions. She had slipped away in the chaos, but there was no time to give chase now. His city needed him. Tires screeching, Batman wove through buckled streets doing rapid damage assessment. The Cray relayed troubling updates. Fires had already consumed Gotham General Hospital. Power grids were down across huge swaths of the city, and the docks were a sinking inferno. Thousands would perish if this kept accelerating. Suddenly on comms, Barbara Gordon's panicked voice cut through the static. "Batman, Dad's not answering. The GCPD headquarters took a direct hit. I can't reach anyone inside." Batman's heart clenched, but he kept his voice steady. "I'll get them out, Barbara. I promise. Keep trying to reach the commissioner." He slammed the accelerator, blasting through steaming debris towards the pillar of flame engulfing police headquarters. Leaping out, Batman rushed towards the shattered entrance. The Grand Hall was a crumbled ruin, flames spreading along the caved roof timbers. "Jim, can anyone hear me?" Batman shouted into the blaze. No response came. Activating infrared lenses, Batman crawled into the rubble searching for heat signatures. He found several faint blobs on the far side and hurried over, digging out soot-covered officers from beneath a collapsed shelf. They coughed weakly but seemed ambulatory. "Is Jim Gordon here?" he yelled over the roaring flames. They shook heads, unable to speak as Batman helped escort them out. He had just returned inside when a creaking groan echoed above. Looking up, Batman saw the last of the roof supports about to fail. He prepared to dive clear when a fiery ceiling beam suddenly careened down, straight at his head. Chapter 19. Metal shrieked against stone as the massive flaming beam fell. Suddenly, a lithe shape tackled Batman from the side, knocking him clear scant seconds before the collapse obliterated the entryway in a hail of sparks and ash. Rolling back to his feet, Batman found Catwoman standing beside him, eyes bright behind smudged goggles. "That's two you owe me now, handsome. Try and not make a habit of it." She gave a wry grin before her expression turned serious. "I've checked the lower floors, no sign of Gordon or any other officers. They must have evacuated already." Batman shook off lingering disorientation. She was right. Any survivors would have already fled upstairs from the spreading flames. Check for stragglers outside. I'll meet you there shortly, he shouted over the blaze before turning and sprinting deeper into the inferno. Weaving through familiar back hallways, Batman descended a hidden stairwell toward the building's lowest levels. Reaching sub-basement 3, he entered a dark observation room. Igniting a flare, Batman crossed to the interrogation chamber on the other side of the one-way glass. Inside, a slender figure sat chained to the metal table, purple suit charred and matted green hair wild, as he hummed absently to himself. Hearing the door, the Joker glanced up with an eerie grin. Well, if it isn't my wing pal, and here I hoped you had forgotten little old me amidst all the ruckus upstairs. To what do I owe the house call Bats? Batman cut straight to the point. Where did they take him? Joker raised his chained hands innocently. Take who, friend? Gordon, your cell has surveillance on the whole headquarters. Oh, Gordon, yes, seems they dragged dear Jimbo out just before the place went boom, loaded him into some van and vamoose. Joker leaned in with a stage whisper. I do hope they don't dent that mustache of his too badly. So distinguishable. Batman swept from the room as Joker called after him. Always a pleasure, Bats. Don't be a stranger now. Back outside, Batman saw Catwoman directing firefighters when he emerged. Gordon's been abducted. Did any vehicles flee the scene before you arrived? Catwoman nodded, gesturing north. Saw a van speeding that way. Want me to hitch a ride? She extended her whip suggestively. Do it, but track only. It's too risky otherwise. I'll follow your signal. Batman fired a grapple line, shooting into the smoke-clouded night. Catwoman's motorcycle roared close behind as they wove between flaming wrecks in pursuit of the commissioner. Chapter 20. Batarangs shattered the skylight in a rain of glass before Batman crashed down into the deserted factory. Scanning the dim space revealed no sign of Gordon or his kidnappers. But soundproofing foam on the walls and security cameras indicated this was indeed an interrogation site. Approaching the single metal chair placed under a hanging lamp, Batman inspected the small dark stains coating the armrest's dried blood. His jaw clenched in anger. He was too late. Footsteps echoed down a corridor as Catwoman ran in. This is definitely the place. But they're already ghosts. I tapped the security feeds. They loaded Gordon into another van 30 minutes ago. Looked pretty roughed up. Her voice softened with sympathy. Batman stood abruptly. I'm getting him back. Pull any plates or identifying marks off the vehicle and start a search grid. Catwoman crossed her arms. Hate to harp on this, but we need more allies out there if Gordon's been taken underground. I can only canvass so much turf solo. He was silent for a long moment. Then his eyes met hers. I have another idea. Within the Batcave, Batman sealed the envelope addressed simply to Grayson, containing nothing but a black domino mask and coordinates. Only 2 people had ever worn that identity at his side. Hopefully it would be enough to summon the one who could help now. Batman then spent hours sifting through Gordon's case files, until he found patterns, a major uptick in brazen robberies, and clashes over turf control, while the police force was paralyzed dealing with the bombings. And where there was a power vacuum in Gotham, Roman Sionis was sure to emerge. If Gordon was still alive, odds were good the criminal kingpin known as Black Mask had him. Dawn crept over the horizon as Batman rose from the console. Tonight, he would find Sionis and learn where Gordon was taken. And with Catwoman's help, he would tear apart the crime lord's empire piece by piece, if that's what it took. But Gotham needed more symbols of hope than vengeance. He only prayed his old partner would return in time. Because without allies like Gordon, the dark forces circling Gotham would only grow stronger. The city needed guardians of justice and light now more than ever. Chapter 21. Alfred wordlessly placed a protein shake on the desk as Bruce suited up. When his gloved hand reached for the martini glass helmet, it paused over the faded pennon tucked inside a memento from brighter years long past. Back when the mission seemed so simple. When he had help. Since Gordon's abduction 3 days prior, Batman had been on near constant patrol, vowing not to fail the city again. But no matter how many leads he followed or bones he broke in Sionis' syndicate, Gordon's location never surfaced. Bruce was running on fumes, but he could not stop. Not while his friend was captive somewhere in the shadows. Selena's voice crackled over the radio in his cowl. "We've got activity. Looks like Sionis is on the move tonight with extra security. Could be he's worried you're closing in." Agreed. Sounds promising. Rendezvous at Pier 17 in 10 minutes. When Catwoman emerged from darkness to land gracefully atop a shipping crate, Batman handed her a listening device. "I want ears inside that convoy. Think you can get close without being seen?" She smiled coyly beneath her goggles. Silly question. Producing a tiny drone from her utility belt, Catwoman launched it skyward before taking a running leap, using her whip to swing between lampposts and land atop the passing armored limo. Now, to wait and listen. Batman grappled up onto a suspended crane, activating the drone receiver. Filters muted engine noise and wind, leaving muffled voices from within the car. "Sure the old man hasn't kicked it yet?" Sionis' unmistakable snarl. A nervous underling responded. "Docs say he's holding stable. For now, no leaks either." "Good, he dies. We lose our leverage on the winged rat. Can't have him interrupting the auctions." Batman tensed. They were keeping Gordon alive, if only as a shield against him. It wasn't much, but it was hope. Abandoning stealth, Batman dove from his perch into a glide above the procession. Let them worry for once. As expected, gunfire erupted wildly upward, allowing him to track the sniper locations. But Batman knew the real fight, both physical and mental, still lay ahead. He needed allies now more than ever. This was one war he could not win alone. Suddenly, bright flashes split the night. On a tall roadway bridge, a dark figure was hurling projectiles down towards the convoy, detonating in clouds of smoke and noise. The gunfire shifted targets, but the shadowy form was too quick, raining disruption. But who? Chapter 22. The convoy had halted, enforcers firing wildly towards the assailant above when Batman landed on their roof. Driving his fists through the windshield, he ripped the drivers out, steering the limo into a controlled crash against a retaining wall before grappling upwards towards the bridge. He caught a brief glimpse of a costumed figure obscured in smoke before they leapt over the edge, tucking into an aerial roll as they fell. Landing in a crouch on the pavement, the mysterious ally looked up at Batman's approach. A familiar face grinned behind the black domino mask, framed by windswept dark hair. "Hey, you miss me?" "Dick." Batman allowed a trace of warmth into his gravelly tone. Then his eyes narrowed. "What are you doing in Gotham?" The young man laughed as he detached the eskrima rods from his back holster. Good to see you too. Got your message. Barbara filled me in on the rest. His playful expression turned serious. We end this tonight and get Gordon back. Batman gave a silent nod of approval. Perhaps calling Dick had been the right move after all. Together again, even Black Mask did not stand a chance at hiding James Gordon from them for long. They grappled up together towards the rooftops. As Dick fired a jump line, he gave a whoop of excitement. Just like old times. The pair moved swiftly across Gotham's jagged skyline, making their way towards Coventry, the district controlled by Black Mask and heart of his criminal operations. On an apartment balcony, Selina Kyle leaned against the railing, watching their silhouettes recede into the night. A motorcycle's rumble made her glance down to where another woman wheeled a sleek bike into the alleyway. Dressed in black leather, with a stylized red bat across the chest, she glanced up and gave Selina a nod. Ready for a team-up, the ginger-haired arrival called. I hear there's a commissioner that needs rescuing. Selina smiled beneath her goggles as she gracefully leapt down beside the bike. Lead the way, Batgirl. Let's remind the boys they aren't the only masks in town. The motorcycle roared off with both riders into the darkness. The fight to take back Gotham's future had finally begun in earnest. Batman stood atop the Gothic cathedral overlooking Coventry Square's cobblestone expanse. Hour by hour, night after night, he had systematically dismantled Black Mask's empire, seizing weapons stashes, destroying distribution hubs, freeing indentured workers. It was nearly time for the endgame. Robin landed silently beside him. He's making a move, pulling resources back to defend the tower. Batman opened the drone feed, showing armed mercenaries taking positions atop Siana's tower in the central plaza. Then, let's not keep them waiting. Together they leapt from the spire, capes spread wide as they descended upon the stronghold. Masked guards rushed to fire at the airborne threats when suddenly the tower's front windows shattered. Batgirl and Catwoman descended with claws and boots flying, scattering the defenders. Ready for this, B? Robin grinned as they touched down back to back amidst swirling chaos. Batman's mouth twitched in a rare smile beneath the cowl as he flung batarangs into the volley of bullets. Let's go get Gordon. Epilogue. In the weeks following Black Mask's downfall, a semblance of peace returned to Gotham. The power vacuum left behind worried Batman, but he had allies now and hope. Gordon was still recovering, but his kidnapping had galvanized citizens rather than cowed them. Each night the skyline still shone with the bat signal, calling guardians new and old to action. There were still battles to be fought, but not alone. Robin had returned from his solo crusade, older and wiser. Batgirl was a formidable fighter despite her inexperience. And Catwoman's skills had proven invaluable for the right cause. United, Batman knew they would defend this city from whatever darkness still lurked within. The forces that sought to tear Gotham apart could not reckon with all those now united by the symbol Bruce had given meaning to. A symbol that still stood for justice, determination, and hope when all seemed lost. A never-ending crusade, but one he no longer had to wage alone. Gotham would survive, whatever the cost. The end.